So in this video, what we're going to be doing is going over some new information that has come out regarding the PlayStation 5, and it is a leak, so we do have to take everything we go over here with a significant grain of salt, but some of it does sound exciting, some of it is quite surprising, and some of it seems a little bit out there, honestly, and it makes this seem a little bit maybe not true, but it's worth going over. And I want to start with the thing that honestly got me most excited. It's something that I always like to hear, and I think it's something that pretty much anybody who is looking forward to the next generation of consoles likes to hear, and it has to do with the power factor. There's no denying the power factor is important, it's significant, and what we're going to be talking about here isn't necessarily the most detailed description, but we need a little bit of context. Apparently, everything that we're going to be talking about here comes from Gizmodo, and they put out a big piece today with all of this information where, as they call it, a tipster, an anonymous tipster, got in contact with them, and normally, at least this is what they say, normally they wouldn't post this stuff without an individual letting us know who they are or who they're associated with and revealing their identity. But in this case, they provided something that, as they put it, many tipsters do not, and that is actual photographic evidence of a PlayStation 5 dev kit, and we're going to go more into that a little bit later. So in case anybody's wondering where this is coming from, this individual who's leaking this so-called tipster, is claiming that they are currently working with both the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlett, and they're working on a game for these consoles. So yeah, that's where the information is coming from. But they talked about the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlett and how apparently it's going to be the biggest jump in computing power of any console generation. So it says here that based on all the facts, rumors, and supposed leaks, we are confident that the PS5 is going to be a bit of a beast. With Sony touting things like ray tracing and 0.8-second load times, it's always been fair to assume that its next-gen console will be powerful, and now an anonymous but seemingly in-the-know source has told Gizmodo that the PS5 will boast, quote, the greatest compute jump in any console. Now, we do need to note here that when this leaker or this tipster was saying this, they weren't just referring to the PS5 before anybody gets it in their head that the PS5 is like miles ahead of Project Scarlett. They were talking about both. Of course, we still do not know which of these consoles is going to end up being more powerful, but I've speculated in the past, and I will continue to do so until I have a reason not to, that they're going to be very similar. I don't think it's going to matter nearly as much which console ends up being more powerful, because I think at the end of the day, they're going to be way too similar for it to be that big of a difference maker. However, we might end up being surprised in the end. I don't want to say for sure, but that's just my speculation there. It says apparently the latest PS5 dev kit is called Prespero, and the bottom line is that it represents a significant jump forward in terms of sheer computing power, and compared to the PS4, if true, it's obviously not a huge surprise, but considering how far consoles have come over the last few decades, it is still very impressive. And I have to agree, it does sound impressive. This is the thing that I'm most excited for, as I said earlier, when it comes to the PlayStation 5. But there are some other very interesting things regarding this this leak that I think people are going to be interested in. The first has to do with the photographic evidence that was provided. Now, most of you probably remember the leaked dev kit that we got word of, or we ended up seeing images of not that long ago. I think it was about 2 months ago, and then shortly after, an actual developer on Twitter confirmed that it is the real dev kit and they have it in their office, and then their Twitter account was immediately removed because the Sony ninjas most likely got to his Twitter account. They were clearly not happy that this developer came out here and confirmed this. A lot of people were really skeptical before this developer confirmed it, and the developer ended up legitimizing it. But we haven't really heard much since. Now, apparently the photographic evidence that this tipster has provided is the exact same design that we saw leaked out, pretty much confirming, if you believe this leak. Now, we do not have these photos. Gizmodo was, letting us know that they're not planning on releasing the photos for the sake of, the identity, to keep this person anonymous, which I don't really understand, because it's like, I don't understand how the photos would, do anything, and this is kind of where maybe the leak becomes somewhat questionable. But again, we do have to understand that there was a developer other than this tipster that did confirm this was the real thing. Now we're hearing that there's photographic evidence out there. And so, yeah, if this is true, I can't say I'm that surprised. The one thing that is most surprising, as I talked about before when it comes to that leaked PS5 dev kit design, is just how different the design philosophy of it seems to be from past PlayStation consoles. I don't think anybody was expecting a V-shaped console, right? And we do have to understand it is just a dev kit and that things will change. If that is the real dev kit, it's not going to look exactly like that when, the console is finally revealed. But it seems that, the most interesting aspect to this console has to be the V-shaped design, which makes sense if it's called PlayStation 5. The Roman numeral V is 5, so I can kind of understand that. And it's making me feel that we may end up actually seeing a V-shaped PlayStation 5, which frankly, I'd be totally okay with. I don't really care what the console looks like. I think that if Sony is actually going to go with something like that, they could probably make it look pretty cool. And at the end of the day, the only thing that's really going to matter is what it's capable of. Function over form factor, I guess, if you want to put it that way. That's what I'm going to be caring about more. But something else that is really, really interesting that has come out of this leak has to do with how apparently both, and this is where I really do not know if I believe this, because this just sounds like there's no way Sony and Microsoft could be doing this. Now, to be fair, if this is true, there is actually a reason why both companies would do this exact same thing. It just is kind of surprising to me, because it's not even something I thought about. But apparently, according to this tipster, both the dev kits for the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlett have cameras built into them. And the reason for this being is because both Sony and Microsoft want to put a heavier emphasis on streaming. Now, that is obviously, in my opinion, if this is true, not the only reason why Sony would be doing it, because they have PSVR. So there's the explanation right there as to why Sony would do this. I don't know how smart it is, but it is justifiable. It's just a matter of pricing. The truth is, a lot of people are not going to be happy if these cameras are built in. It really brings us back to the 2013 Kinect thing that Microsoft tried to do with the Xbox One, and it was an absolute disaster. I'll tell you this, if this is true for either of these consoles, they're not going to be built in. There's just no way. Not only does that not really make sense, especially when you think about the streaming aspect. I mean, how many people set up their consoles in a convenient location for, being able to have a camera? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't really make sense to me for these cameras to be built into the console. It would also make sense why Microsoft would want to have a camera peripheral, and I'm assuming that's what these will be, peripherals. I highly doubt, if this leak is true, these cameras are going to be built into the consoles. It doesn't make much sense. They're most likely going to end up being peripherals. But then again, it makes you think, why would they include them built into the dev kits? I don't know. This, to me, is the biggest thing that's just throwing me off here. But we know that Microsoft has Mixer, and they have Mixer integration with the Xbox One, and they're going to obviously want to keep pushing that. So it would make sense why they would want to have a camera. Apparently, as well, if the leak is to be believed, the camera that is inside Project Scarlett is significantly better than the one that Sony's offering. But, it does say here that everything is obviously subject to change. These are not final. And so there's just a lot of incredibly interesting stuff here that's coming out. I think not that long ago, I didn't cover this, but a couple days ago there was a patent filed or something. There was some information coming out that Sony is trying to get a PlayStation voice assistant that apparently they want to have, I guess, ready for next gen, where you can just kind of talk to this PlayStation voice assistant and ask it questions about games or whatever, and it'll just answer you automatically on the fly, which does sound like it could be kind of cool. But this is that time where we don't know enough to really be able to know if we can believe this. That's why I opened this video by talking about the power factor, because if there's whether this leak ends up being legitimate or not in the end, we won't know till we get closer to the actual reveal. One thing I think we can say is exciting is that there is going to be a huge leap in compute power, for both of these consoles. And that's just going to be incredibly exciting for what developers are going to be able to do with their games. I mean, we already hear a lot of developers. I know I haven't been covering it as much. I probably should try to, but we've been hearing a lot of developers talking about what they are looking forward to doing with the extra power and the SSDs, these just literal game-changing aspects of these next-gen consoles. But yeah, these are some really interesting things here, man. So at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to leave your thoughts down below. What do you think about, first of all, these consoles being the biggest leap of any generation in terms of sheer compute power? Does that sound exciting to you? I know it sounds exciting to me. Which console do you think is going to end up being more powerful, and will that do you think it'll make a big difference? Will it matter in the end? What do you think about apparently this photographic evidence confirming that this V-shaped console is the real deal? It is the real dev kit. Do you think that we're going to end up seeing a V-shaped PlayStation 5 when it's all said and done? And what do you think about these cameras apparently being built into the consoles? Do you think it's most likely that they're going to end up being peripherals, or do you think that Sony and Microsoft are actually crazy enough to ship their next-gen consoles with cameras built into them? I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Be sure to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it or found it informative or helpful. It really helps me out. Lets me know you guys are enjoying the content. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.